Hi, church family. Pastor Eric here with today's word from the Word. And following up on the message on Sunday out of 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 1 through 11, there was an aspect that I really wanted to get a hold of and maybe expand a little bit on. And that was the idea of husbands and wives belonging to one another, and that we don't have authority over ourselves, but we yield authority to those around us because we care about them and we love for them. We have love for them. As you remember, the first point was that biblical marriage is other-centered. It is where I care more about your needs than my own. And that passage and that whole concept echoes throughout the Scripture as we are called to love one another. Now, in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 21, which is right at the beginning of that whole husbands and wives sections, where wives are called to submit to their husbands and husbands are called to love their wives, it begins with a statement in Ephesians 5:20 that says, "All of you submit to one another out of reverence for Christ." Well, it's echoing the same thought and feeling of this passage in 1 Corinthians, because what it's saying is, arrange yourself underneath. To submit biblically, hupotasso, means to say, I'm going to arrange myself underneath you and elevate your needs above my needs. That would be true in an employer-employee relationship. If I'm an employee, I want to elevate the needs of the business over my personal wants and desires. As an employer, I want effective employees, and I want to elevate their needs. I want to make them the most effective employees possible so that the business succeeds. And that's servant leadership right there, but it also reflects the very concept of submitting yourself or arranging yourself in such a way that the relationships are harmonious, the relationships are loving, the relationships are other-centered. So when we talk about husbands and wives, employees, employers, friends, we're talking about the idea of arranging yourself in such a way that the needs of the other person are more important to you than your own needs are. It doesn't mean you can't honor both. It doesn't mean you can't find a win-win. But if it's just, I want to get what I want and the other person's going to be hurt by it and I don't care, then you've entered into the wrong place in that relationship and in that biblical concept. If you remember, a few weeks ago, we talked about the idea that why not rather be wronged and honor God with your respect and honor towards one another than get your way and get justice and get what you want? Which one reflects the character of God? If he had what he wanted, there would be nothing but holiness and justice. But instead of demanding it from us and casting us aside when we weren't able to meet that standard, he instead provided that standard for us by sacrificing his Son on our behalf, so that we might be considered holy and we might be considered righteous before God through the person of Jesus Christ. So as we lift up one another, I want to encourage you to think about, how can I arrange myself underneath the needs of those I'm in a relationship with? If I'm a husband who's really seeking to lead my family, that means I become the servant who places my wife's needs above my own. If one is the wife, they're saying, how can I make my husband successful? How can I be that helpmate that God calls me to? How can I really show that their needs are more important than mine? And that's what Paul is saying here in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. He's saying that we need to place the other person's needs and the good of the other person above our own good. It needs to be true for each and every one of us. Now imagine what kind of world that would be if we were truly all centered upon one another, that we would have this festival of servanthood and love that was lifting each other up to higher and higher planes of righteousness and holiness that reflected the character and the glory of Christ, the character and the glory of God. I hope that this helps, and I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. God bless. Take care.